gon' put it to you like this, yo.
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know that I know.
What is poppin', everybody? And welcome back to another special episode of the Only Friends podcast. Well, you know, it's me and my only friend, which includes, but is not limited to, my Uzbekistan brother. What is poppin', Berk? How you feeling today?
Oh, baby. What a weekend we had over here in Uzbekistan.
What's going on over there, man?
Is that where I'm at this week? Have I made my way over to what's near Uzbekistan?
That's Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. All the stands.
Right, Kazakhstan. All the stands. You know, It's just me and my boys in the stands.
Is there no stand?
You're on a camelback, so you don't move too fast. So you're still in Uzbekistan. Maybe next week.
Right. Well, you know, you got to be careful about the borders around here. Am I near Afghanistan? That feels like a stand I want to stay away from. I'm not sure.
I think you're a little bit to the north and a little bit to the east.
You are. Wow, Brian, I'm very impressed. I'm pretty sure you're right.
I have no idea. I just said that with confidence.
I think you're right, though. I'm not sure about the east part, but definitely the north part.
Definitely east, right?
We're about to go find out, obviously. We need to know. Definitely need to know.
We truly don't know. But yeah, it was a big weekend, big weekend of NFL where I got to stay up till 4:00 in the morning local, in order to watch these games go down. It was a bloody week, to say the least. Obviously,
yeah.
Obviously, we're gonna discuss a little bit of the weekend wrap up in the NFL, so give you guys all a little bit of a forewarning there. We also have a lot to talk about. I've been deep down the conspiracy rabbit hole. This one might be worse than when Trump got assassinated, or the first assassination attempt. I went down a rabbit hole then. I'm so deep in the P. Diddy rabbit hole.
Oh, man.
I'm on to the Ashton Kutcher rabbit hole at this point.
Dude,
so
you went right past
absurd.
Bieber? You went right past Bieber, huh?
Are you...
Bieber's in all the rabbit holes.
Wait, of course he is.
Are you at Kim?
Bieber... Oh, Kim's involved. Everybody's deleting their Twitters, bro. Like, Bieber's like a whack-a-mole at the Chuck E. Cheese. You know, every time you go down a new rabbit hole, he just pops up.
Poor Bieber.
I can't get this poor kid. I can't get enough of it. So we're going to discuss that a little bit. I have some thoughts. Airball recently did a podcast with our friends over at Table One, Art and Justin. You guys gave it a listen. I gave it a listen. I got some things to say about that one. So we'll discuss that, and we'll wrap this show with an In the Muck, as we always do. So let's get to it, I guess. What'd you guys think? I mean, obviously, we'll wrap up our weekend, or we'll revisit our weekend warriors later in the week. Not to brag, but you know, mine was a lock.
Yeah, same.
God.
I guess if you go bullish on Steelers, you just win. So that's kind.
Yeah, I mean,
like
said that they might start 9-0,
well,
and they might finish 9-8.
No team in the history of the NFL has had a better start than the Steelers in the first 3 weeks.
I did say if you guys get Justin Fields, I do like you.
What does it even mean? That means nobody's been 4-0 in the first 3 weeks. We're 3-0.
Yes, I think Justin Fields has a big part to do with it.
Buddy, we've given up 12 points in 3 weeks.
No, I know.
Yeah, it's nice that he's not turning the ball over.
Exactly.
But even Kenny Pickett could have won these games.
Kenny Pickett can't win anything. Guy's a bum.
I mean, you really don't have to score much. I just hope we can. I mean, look, we got 20 points. I said we were going to get, 35? I was off by a couple touchdowns.
Man.
But, we're getting there. We're getting there. They could have. I was pricing in a defensive touchdown, which is common. And then they fell on the ball at the goal line. So basically, I was right.
So what a sick week this was for Survivor. Man, there was 3,800 left, and 3 out of the top 4 teams got knocked out. The Browns, the Bucks, and the Raiders, which equal about 2,000 picks, a little over.
It was moving week.
That is insanity, dude.
Wait till the Bengals lose tonight.
Oh, we're gonna be so sick. So we had 3 picks going into this week. Somehow, some fucking way, we found a way to put one on San Fran. Can't breathe.
What do you mean? I can't. We're not going to do this right now.
What?
Can't do this right now.
Do what?
They blew
You're
it.
sad? Oh, yeah. They did blow
They
it.
blew it.
Oh, it's down bad.
We would have been looking real nice if San Fran would have just held. I only think there was only like a few dozen people that had San Francisco.
Only 69 had
69
San
people?
Fran,
Yeah,
so we got
yeah.
super fucked here, honestly. Like, we would have been cooling. But honestly, we're still looking good. 1,015. So maybe there's like 1,600 people left going into tonight with 988 on the Bengals.
Wow.
Imagine the Bengals. Wait, do we want the Bengals to lose and we just have
I'm
one
like,
pick?
yeah, right.
Are we
I
just
don't think
happy
so.
with one pick?
I don't think so. You'd rather have 2 picks.
You idiot. What is the matter with you?
What do you mean? That 988 people are out. That means there's like
If there was like 1,500 of them on there, then maybe we'd want it.
there's only 500 people, 600, 700 people, 600, 700 people
There
left.
has to be a number where you'd want to lose.
Yes, and what's that number?
I don't know,
Yeah.
but there has to be one.
There has to be.
I don't
If
think
we-
it's 900. I think it has to be closer to like 98% of the rest of the field on it. Something crazy like that.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's that high. But
Maybe
like,
that's a
Survivor
little egregious. That's a little
ICM.
egregious.
clearly,
Maybe 90%.
Clearly, when we're down to our final 2 picks, we prefer to advance one of them.
Yeah.
Is my camera grainy for you guys, or is this just my shot?
It's the
that I'm
background, I believe.
It
seeing?
does look grainy.
No. It looks like it's like 460p.
It does look.
for
Yeah,
me.
it doesn't. It's not.
Does it,
It looks
great.
bad.
it looks down. It looks down
Don't-
bad for you guys too.
Doesn't look good, cuz.
Yeah, it looked a little down bad.
It's not
Did it-
horrible. Not horrible, but not
Well,
great.
No, it's,
Guapo's being too
It's-
nice again.
No,
Yeah, it's
why do
horrible.
you-
look at, try to read this alpha
Hold
line
Hold on a
statement.
second. Hold on a second.
We can fix this.
Let me explain stuff. We can fix things if people are honest about them. But whenever they say like it's not that bad and you're actually in 360p, it's that bad, and now we're just stuck with it. I don't
That's
know what to
my-
do
my
now
fault,
in
guys.
real time.
You know,
you'll be all right.
it's you're definitely grainy. You can barely read the S4Y patch.
Well, that's intentional. The focus is on me, not the computer. But it looks very grainy to me.
All
Now
right,
that
all
I've
right.
turned the attention of that to the audience, I guess we're just gonna suffer through. I mean, obviously, we want our pick to go through for reasons enough that each pick that you have remaining is probably worth somewhere in the neighborhood of 5K, and we've dusted 8 of our 10 picks. We're barely
Yeah.
breaking even in EV. If we
Quite
get through.
honestly, I think if San Fran would have won yesterday, we want the Bengals to lose. Like
Maybe,
there's
yeah,
there's
but-
there's some math equation here that we just like if we had 2 picks and it leaves only 600-700 people left as opposed to 1,700, I think we want.
I think wouldn't you just do like how much is each pick worth, and would
Yeah,
one
we can
pick be
figure it
worth
out.
more than 2 picks if like in each scenario?
we can figure out the dollar
right,
amount. Yeah.
right. That's basically, I guess, how you do it. Just
Yeah.
what the value of your remaining picks are.
Normally, I'm the neurodivergent math guy, but it looks like you guys got that today.
Yeah, leave this one up to Brian.
Yeah,
He's got this one figured out for sure.
I got it. I got
See,
it,
all you
guys.
do is you got to take these picks and see how many they're worth.
Isn't that what you do?
Could be.
All right,
That's
all
math,
right.
baby.
That
That's
is-
just
that is-
math.
That's no limit.
It is math.
Pretty excited. We got 2 games tonight. Should be fun. We have the Bengals and who are they playing?
Randers.
Commanders. And
Commanders.
what's the other one?
The
Bills and the Jaguars.
Yeah.
Interesting. The Bills look good, man. They're kind of scary.
Why do
Is
they
this-
do this 2 games on
I was
Monday?
gonna say, is this new?
They would do this like used to do this like the first week, and now they're doing it in week 3, which I don't know why. And they run the games basically simultaneously. I think like one starts like an hour after the first one starts, so it's very dumb. I don't understand it.
I mean, more football's
There's a
better.
reason why they do it, but I don't know what it is. Like, I guess maybe now everyone just has 2 TVs; they can just watch both games.
I mean, why is it dumb? If you think about it, there's infinite games played on Sunday. Why don't we get a little more taste on Monday?
I mean, why not just run them why not start one a little bit earlier and then you can watch both games back to back instead of having them go at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't get the simultaneous part. Just doesn't seem great for trying to I guess engage viewership. You're just gonna get the local fans dedicated to each stream, right? And then people flipping through on commercial. But whatever. That's what they chose. We ride with it. I guess go Bengals.
I know it's so painful to say that. I get it.
Oh man, I should have worn my Bengals
win-win.
jersey.
Yeah, it's kind of a win-win. If they get through, we have another team in Survivor. If they lose, then the Steelers are 2 games up in the North.
Right.
Well, we just need the Bengals to do some cooking. And let's find out who else cooked this weekend.
Ready or not, here I come. Jumped out with my soul leaking, going hard till I'm so eating. No chatting and no speaking, no dapping with slow breathing. Damn, homie, you the man, homie. They can't do it, but you can, homie. They can't do it, but you.
We had a chef in the kitchen, one of our very own this weekend. Our boy Landy got the job done, kind of.
Wow.
Kind of. But 2/3 equals a first, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how it goes?
In this case, 2/3 would have equaled a second.
Oh, okay. So 2/3 equals a second. Congrats, Landy. He got third in the 1K and
525 circuit main.
the 525 circuit main. Sweet. What was the main for?
32.
Nice. Let's go.
Okay.
1K.
Living in the Bronze Age. Not bad.
1K was for 12,000?
1K is for 12K, yeah.
All right, sweet.
Olga sent me the meme of the guy with the medal, chomping the medal and drinking and in the alcohol, and it was the third place.
The third place guy popping the champagne.
Yeah.
It's the
Hey,
best.
Connie, didn't you do a little cooking this weekend? I think you did well in a tournament, right?
No.
Didn't you play live?
Oh, yeah. I mean, whatever. It was a nightly.
Yeah.
I don't.
Wait, let's hear about you cooking. What
I don't
happened?
celebrate nightly wins. I don't care. I don't even tell them to put on my Hendon mob. I'm like, this means nothing.
Did you
Can
win?
please
Did you
not?
end
I
up
don't
with all
think
the
you
chips?
have to tell them, man. I think that's just an automated process. They just report.
Nah.
Seems like a thing. No.
I mean, when you tell them not to, they don't. I'm like, hey, don't put this on.
I don't think that's true either.
It is.
I
What are
think
you
they have
talking
to.
about? No, they don't.
They
Look at
they
Venetia.
omit-
They put anonymous
What do
for
you
a whole
mean?
bunch of stuff, on the Twitter stuff, and then it goes anonymous to Hendon mob.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
That seems shady.
Interesting.
Why would we do this? Are we hiding something? Is it
No,
gonna
I don't like nightlies on my thing. Nobody needs to know I'm playing nightlies all the time.
Oh, I see. It's a status thing.
No, it's just one of those things. I don't know.
Have we
Hey,
learned
man,
nothing?
tournament's a
from J-Bex?
tournament. I know. Start with nightlies. You end with, heads up in the Poker Go studio.
Hey man, he took one down. Shout out to J-Bex for that. He's cooking too. We gave him his cooking.
We did.
Of course.
We did.
Yeah.
Oh, did you?
He's got a bone to pick with Matt, bro.
Did you
He's
ask
got
him to
enough
come to the
of it.
studio?
He'll be here at some point, I'm sure.
All right.
Gotta get that guy in here.
Sounds good.
Gotta get that guy to talk on the
What's his beef
podcast.
with me?
He says you yapping too much, man. You yapping, you don't know where he's at. He's cashed for over 7 figures this year. Gotta give the boy some props. Shout out to our boy.
Okay. I don't
Apologize.
know what anything means anymore.
Say sorry.
It used to mean a
Say
lot.
sorry.
It used to mean a lot to cash for 7 figures. Now I don't even know if that's I don't even know if that equals profit these days.
Well, it depends what you're playing, I guess.
When they're all
What's the
nightlies,
new
it's probably
barometer?
profit.
I mean, I don't necessarily, obviously, I don't know how he's doing this year, but this is the first year that he's kind of shot taking and playing higher, and obviously had some good results in some 10Ks and stuff like that. So it's hard to know who's winning in poker. That's what we've learned throughout the years.
I'd be pretty sure that he's profiting this year.
Yeah, no, he's doing,
Right, yeah,
he's
he's
doing
probably
very well
doing pretty
this year.
well
But
this year.
as an MTT guy, the old barometer was cashing for $1 million in a year. What is the new barometer? Is there
When the
one?
average buy-in was
I mean,
Yeah, I guess it just it depends on what your average buy-in
3K.
is.
it's
I don't
probably
know.
around the same. Honestly, the ABI is probably around the same as it is now versus then. But the difference is a lot of the guys that cash for 7 figures are also just grinding the high roller circuit. If you can cash for 7 figures and not really play that many high rollers, it's probably the same idea. But if you're playing 10Ks and 25Ks
Right.
and 50Ks, if you don't cash for $1 million in a year grinding all the stops, you're fucking buried.
You're getting crushed.
You're
Right, you're putting up probably a couple million in buy-ins,
You
right?
really can't put a barometer on cashes, like cash for this much, because it's all in relative.
No, but I think if you're playing like WPTs as like your biggest events of the year and you cash for 7 figures, you've had a sick year. It's almost impossible to a degree to like have a year like that without having a podium finish in like a WPT or like a WSOP event, you know, where you bang it off when you're playing 3Ks and under. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing 10Ks and 25Ks, it's different because you can just cash for a quarter plus of that if you win one. But if you're playing only like 5Ks and under, like big field 5Ks, like the biggest tournament you play throughout the year is the Florida 5K in August, and you cash for 7 figures, like you're cooking. You're cooking for sure.
Yeah, you are. I would say you're probably winning like 600, 700 there, something along those lines. Because I would think like 3Ks and under probably put like 300 to 400K in volume if you're just playing everything.
That's if you're playing everything and like you're not playing online or whatever because you're busy traveling the circuit and grinding and doing all that stuff. But like if you're playing, like if you're going to like 1700s, going to like 3500s and traveling and finding a way to like make 7 figures in the year, you probably had a great year.
Yeah, sure.
It's almost impossible to get $1 million in buy-ins playing 3500s and lower.
Right.
Yeah,
in a year.
you're putting like I want to say like
There's just not that many events even, right?
probably like 2. I mean, there
you
is.
have to play
Trust me.
300 3500s to
Exactly.
to get to
You
a
have to play
million.
300 bullets in 3500s.
That's a
and
lot.
To a degree, like the only like big field 3500s and stuff are the WPTs that happen maybe 8 times a year or,
Yeah,
or something.
I was thinking 8 to 10.
So even then, like if you're putting in 3 bullets on average
That's
in
what I
each
was
one, you're buying in for 75K for the year.
So, but like, and then like if you started to add WSOP, like I think buy-ins would be like if you're trying 250 to 300 for the year. At the max 4.
Right. I think if you're grinding high rollers, you know, and like playing a ton in the studio, like it's different to cash. Like you just have a different parameter. You know, if you're cashing for like 5 million, now you're probably having like a pretty good year. But if you're playing like I guess it's not really mid stakes, but because of high rollers now, it is mid stakes.
Yeah.
If you're playing mid stakes and cash for 7 figures, it's probably the equivalent of what it used to be.
All right.
Like I've had a career year, and like I'm not really playing. I haven't played that many high rollers this year, you know, and most of it's been like 3500s and stuff like that, playing live. But like if I was playing the Poker Go year round, I would be in for so much money, and I'd be getting ravaged. I'm 0 for the studio. As Hank
Landon
calls it.
had 3 days in the studio last
4
week.
days.
4 days.
5
And
days.
he's not going back for a while.
No, I'm going. Yeah, I'm going. Well, no, there's a bounty series I'm going to go play, I'm sure. But like, I just mean I'm 0 for the studio. Yeah. So if I'm only using like Poker Go records, like I'm getting buried. Yeah. I'm ravaged. Sick whale in the studio.
Sick whale.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you who's not cooking. That's going to be Diddy, Puffy, Sean Combs, whatever you want to call this fucking man. There's so much crazy shit coming down. Berkey's gone down the rabbit hole. He's told us like there is so many paths and angles to this thing. I don't even know how to even start talking about it. So we're going to let Cat Williams give a little preview.
Going to turn down $50 million. Now, I've had to turn down $50 million 4 times. 4 times. Just to protect my integrity and that virgin hole I was telling you about. Right. Because P. Diddy be wanting the body. And you got to tell him no. You got to tell him no.
So this actually came out before all of like this stuff that's going down.
Really?
It came out like a year ago or something
God.
like that.
Yeah.
And he's like, a lot of stuff is going to go down, or earlier this year. He's like, a lot of shit's going to go down in 2024. I don't care if you did it. I don't care if you're this. Everyone's going down. Couple months later, dominoes are falling. Burke, I know you've been in the investigation. What's going on over there?
Tell us what you've learned, Burke.
You feel like Ingram on a Saturday night?
He's in the investigation, or he's part of the indictment?
I don't know what that means. I wish I knew these celebrities. No, I actually don't.
So you didn't go to any P. Diddy parties?
I have not made it to any Diddy parties. No.
All right.
I think
Gotta tell him
Diddy's
no.
a diddler. If I had to guess, like that's not actually part of the rabbit hole. Like that's just, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on here. What was interesting to me about the rabbit hole was there was a lot of things kind of, it all takes a giant spin, right? Like, and at the end of the day, this is all, like, from my perspective, in good fun, like the rabbit hole stuff, not what actually occurred. Whatever actually occurred, hopefully will come out in the court of law, and everybody will get their justice or whatever. But man, there are just so many wild stories tied to this. So apparently, like, in 2001, when Ashton Kutcher was like, I don't know, 19 or something like that, he was supposed to go on this date with this girl that he met. I can't recall where or whatever. And she stood him up. And it turned out that she didn't actually stand him up. She got murdered that night.
Jesus.
And so I went down this whole rabbit hole. I watched this like 30-minute video combing through all of the details of like this girl's murder, the investigation or lack thereof. I guess like it traveled with Ashton all the way until like 2019 when he finally took the stand. And essentially, like, bro, it just took me so many places.
Wait, how's this tied to Diddy?
It's
because
all tied.
The night of the murder, he called his publicist and Danny Masterson, who is now
we know about
in
him.
jail. Yeah, he's now in jail for being, a sex offender in some sort of capacity and all the other shit that he did.
He's a raper.
That all dovetailed into a Diddy party somehow. I honestly, I don't remember. I told you, man, I got lost. I was like, I was down the rabbit hole. It started with a literal Diddy thing that I was clicking on about Justin Bieber and Usher. And the next thing I knew, I was on to Ashton Kutcher. Bro, you don't want to know, man. Somehow I landed, when it was all said and done, the last video I watched was about the mass shooting in Vegas on October 1st. Back in 2016, I think it was.
Yeah.
And how that had something to do with, like, I don't know, elites in some sort of capacity, and how it wasn't actually the guy in the Mandalay Bay, but there were these stealth helicopters firing on the crowd. Bro, I'm like, I mean, I think I'm gonna hit Nikki up and just like, bunker down, get some supplies, and just really go deep into the
I
hole.
mean, that's the world we live in now. You can literally go as deep or as far as you want to go.
Yeah,
like it's insane. Like another, there's the stories about like he was grooming Bieber.
Yeah.
Apparently, right, when he was like underage, and trying to get him to do whatever. I don't know, but like, I mean, it's a lot of this stuff is going to come out in the trial, which is going to be very, very, like all the, like Berkey said, all the truthful stuff, all the stuff like that's actually happened, not conspiracy theories, is going to come out in the trial, and there's going to be a lot of shocking things.
You want to know something funny about all this? Because like these conspiracy theories and these rabbit holes are so interesting, because it's like there's so much information that's being spread, right? And some of it's probably true.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is just exaggerated, fake, or whatever. And it's like navigating and fleshing out what you think seems to like correlate enough to be true is kind of fucking fun. Like, you honestly like playing detective.
Yeah, right.
And like, if I know you said like stuff that's gonna happen in the court of law and come out, but I don't know. The people that are connected to this, and like I'm looking like even like down rabbit holes of like people recently deleting their Twitters, like Pink and somebody and Usher.
Yeah, you might never get the full extent of what really happened. I mean, look at like the Jeffrey Epstein thing, right? So many people were connected to that are trying to hide it, and
it's all connected, man.
It's all
fucking connected.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Somehow Pizzagate's gonna come back. I don't know what the hell's going on. Apparently Usher lived with Diddy for a year when he was like 13. His parents like turned over custody of him for a year. Yeah. And like, so he was the original one that was groomed. And then like collectively they alleged to have groomed Bieber. I mean, just like wild shit. But then another thing that like all this looped into was that essentially the belief is that MJ in all of his problems, Michael Jackson, in all of his problems, was actually gaslit and didn't actually do any of the heinous things that he was accused of, never proved to have done. And, you know, effectively, the belief is that he was murdered by his doctor, which doesn't even seem to be like that much of a conspiracy at this point. But yeah, it's all just like, it's so wild. And you could really lose a lot of time falling down this rabbit hole, especially today's day and age where like we're also guilty of just like swiping through reels anyway. That it's just like, it's real easy to like actually have a directed focus whenever you're just wasting time on the internet.
Yeah. This shit is wild. I don't even know what to think about it because like a lot of fucking people went to his parties. And
that's what I was going to start pointing out. So
I think the
real story is going to be how many people may or may not have to testify, how many people get indicted, how many people were part of these parties.
Yeah, they were basically what it seemed like after hours is when like their party started, and they whatever called them freak offs or something along those lines. But like there was an interview by Diddy's old bodyguard, and basically he was saying that where Diddy learned these behaviors from were the ones that groomed him, or like whatever, the ones that taught him the game. Yeah, like Simmons and Bill Simmons. I forgot the name.
Russell Simmons?
Is it Russ? No,
I mean,
I don't think it was Russ. Anyway, but like, yeah, it was just like there's some wild shit, man. Like I don't even want to talk about these interviews, like what is being said, but like, yeah, it's just. Diddy's a freaky nigga. And out of his fucking mind, it seems.
Yeah.
Did you like see anything about this other than that? Other than what was reported?
So yeah, the freak offs were an interesting one because apparently he was like hiring sex workers to partake in them, and they like. Some of the evidence seems like really flimsy. When they raided his LA house, I think it was, they found like 1,000 bottles of baby oil.
Yeah, and lube. Yeah.
And lube, and that was supposed to be correlated to like these freak offs or whatever. I don't know. It's, to me, there's gonna be like a little bit of humor in this when it all plays out in court. I'm sure Saturday Night Live will have their way with it. There's also like he's alleged to have this thing called Love Island, which I guess is similar to Epstein Island. All I'm really realizing is that rich people, like true wealth, is terrifying to me.
For real.
I don't know to what degree they're getting their hands dirty when it comes to using the world as a playground, but it seems never ending.
Right. The ultra rich people, like, you know, obviously not all of them, but like a lot of them think that they can just basically do whatever they want and get away with whatever they want. And we find out that, you know, that's not always true. Look at Epstein, look at Diddy now, and I'm sure countless others.
Yeah, but like, what are the consequences?
There need to be more, for sure.
And also, it is true that they can do whatever they want. Diddy's been running the streets for how many decades?
Well, he's not going to be running any streets now.
I agree, but like at this point, like there's countless murders around him.
Yeah,
countless murders around him. Like the one that Shine went to jail for, when the night with Jennifer Lopez in the whatever the limo. Biggie, Tupac. There's like countless murders around him. Like I have to like go back and watch interviews again, but like there's a lot, and it's like, dude, this man is so powerful that a
majority of his wealth came from Sean John. Is that right, or just other investments?
Not Rockefeller.
His record label,
Bad Boys.
Just producing.
Bad Boys, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Sean John came from that, and then like he just grew his name off of Bad Boys, kind of. I mean, kind of.
I thought the majority of his wealth came from his clothing line, but
no. The majority of wealth, definitely.
It depends. It depends how you say majority, right? Like, if his first 100 million came from one thing, and then his next 900 million came from another, it's easy to say that the majority came from that secondary thing. But like, you don't get there without the first 100.
Without the first, right? It was Bad Boys, really. That Bad Boys record that really propelled him into stardom.
Bro, the amount of like mockery that's already taking place of like the two milk bottles together, clicking together, going back.
Yo, that's fucking hilarious.
It's so funny. Like, it's already plastered along the internet. The irony too is that there was already like dozens of comedy skits throughout the last 25 years that were already mocking Diddy, because this was like almost an open secret, it seems, in Hollywood in some capacity. Dave Chappelle did one on the Chappelle Show that was like just phenomenal, and now it seems like every detail is falling in line and potentially having a lot of truth to it. I don't know, man. I'm always interested how these things shake out in court, because like Lamanna mentioned, I don't think we learned anything really about the Epstein case.
And that's designed.
Learned that heinous we just like learned that heinous things were happening. But like a great example is like the way that the Epstein case persuaded people politically, right? A lot of it was a big emphasis on the Clintons being on the flight log and on all these Democrats. And, I think that that's a very proper thing to emphasize. Like, there's a lot of fucking
Trump has been accused of being on the plane, or he has been on his plane, but he said he's never been to the island. But has he been to the island? We don't know.
Well, that was the other aspect of it is that it almost became like a rally cry for the other side, in the sense that like Trump was on that plane. I think it came out like something like 42 times or something along those lines, but there was no trail of him actually stepping foot on the island where the others had. And it's like what a minor detail to not be able to zoom out on and just be like,
where you think the plane was going?
Like all of these people are terrified. You know what I mean? Like they're flying private together. They're brushing elbows. They know stuff about each other. Yeah. I certainly wouldn't be cherry picking anybody out of that group and being like, well, he's good and he's bad. It's just like, no. I'm mortified of literally everybody's name that popped up on this list.
Right.
Yeah.
It's scary. I hope details come, but more so, I just hope the internet keeps doing what it does.
It will,
because
I hope no details come out. I don't want to know this shit. This is a scary fucking world, and it's like you cut the head off of a snake and it just grows right back. 3 more grow right back. So it's like, bro, I don't know.
They sent Usher to live with him at 13.
And it's fucking insane, dude.
Like, he joked on a Howard Stern interview. This was a couple years ago. He joked that like he would just like watch them fuck. It's like, what?
They're messed up.
13.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell is going on here?
There was an interview where he was on the Breakfast, or Diddy was on the Breakfast Club, and Charlemagne goes and plays this clip that.
Oh, I saw that.
Where Diddy's like, "Oh yeah, Daddy, that's how you do it, Daddy. That's how I like it," or something along those lines.
Party or something like that.
Yeah. And Charlemagne's, "Can you explain this for me?" And then he's like, "Yeah, it's all love at the parties, man. All love." I just started dying. I'm like, yo, all this connected is just wild. Like, I don't know. It's mind blowing.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm just bored and find it interesting,
Yeah, of course.
I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole for sure.
Keep us posted on your latest findings, Berk.
Sure. I'll be happy to keep you guys updated. While we're going down rabbit holes of the rich and famous and trying to chase money trails and figuring out where they ultimately lead to and which major figurehead are pulling the puppet strings and funding all kinds of weird shit, let's talk Nik Airball.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. I would have never guessed that you were going to go to him.
How's this motherfucker stay in action? That's what I want to know. That's my first question out of the gate. How does this guy still have the ability to ante up?
Who knows? All I know is he could turn 20 into a milli.
Well, I was about to say it seems like a reasonable thing now because he turned a 5K job that pays 5K a month into somehow millions. So I think it's a thing.
Okay. So what Guapo is referencing is the Table One podcast recently interviewed Airball, and it was supposed to be kind of a tell-all of his backstory, how he got to this point. And, some of the hard questions that are really lingering for Nik to answer, like, hey, bro, where'd you get the money? You don't just show up at high stakes. And it's ironic because I think the audience is becoming more and more accepting of young guys just showing up in the high stakes sphere without questioning it. And I think that's a byproduct of there was no ease of access when we were coming up. So for us, there was ease of money because of online. So you had a lot of guys like Ike and Galfond and Roble who found early success and early fortunes. I imagine, if you pick apart that Ship It Holla Baller crew of Durr, Ike, Galfond, Benefield, et cetera, Roble was involved. If you pick that crew apart, I'm sure that, collectively there was over 100 million in winnings in the early 2000s, like, 2008, 9, somewhere around there. So it was no surprise when slowly but surely they started to infiltrate the high stakes TV scene. Galfond had his first debut on High Stakes Poker. Durr very quickly became a media darling, being a Red Pro from Full Tilt, which also I'm sure was paying him a healthy salary. And he started to play a lot more TV games. Matter of fact, all the TV games. And then, Roble very quickly made his name known, first through a couple of tournaments, but then eventually just getting into the high stakes arena. And again, this is all byproduct of, like, it was easy to trace where the money came from. It's like these guys grew up in fucking Wisconsin and Michigan and just grinded online and made infinite money. But now, good.
Sorry, I kind of have a bone to pick with this.
Okay.
Why does it matter? Like, why does it matter where he got his funds from? Like, the only reason why I see that it could be an issue, like, the only reason why the community should even question is because he's saying that he, whatever, won X amount of dollars, X, Y, and Z. And
that's why.
Okay. I just want to make sure I see the only reason why, because it seems like, I don't know, kind of like
this is very
a
simple.
weird thing.
Like, as the audience, you don't want the wool pulled over your eyes. You don't want to be lied to. You don't want to be fed a bullshit burger every single day and be forced to choke it down. And it's not like Airball is a one of one. He's not like a one-off. He's not a random story that, like, yeah, okay, maybe we could believe. Like, he's not the Liver King. Actually, he is indicative of the Liver King. A guy who's just yoked. A guy who's yoked out of his mind, that's clearly taking more juice than a fucking vegan on a Saturday morning, and trying to pretend that he's just completely natty in the bodybuilding world. Those guys are a dime a dozen, and they only create an audience based off of people that they're able to dupe. You have to be kind of a fool to fall for that kind of stuff. And it's the same thing with Nik's story. Like, okay, so we're supposed to believe he's a 26-year-old investment banker because that sounds good. But then you start to dig in a little bit, and it's like, okay, an entry-level investment banker is not going to be capable of playing 200, 400, no limit, period. Right. And it also dilutes stories like Rampage, who, for the most part, we know precisely how he's made every dollar. Now, we may not agree with how he's made every dollar, since a lot of it was opportunities during COVID where he leveraged his platform. But the fact is, he built the platform from scratch. Right. And whether or not you want to take a moral stance on should he be allowed to leverage it in a way that is raking that platform, that's a different conversation. But when it comes to Airball, it's like, it was just lie after lie after lie after lie until he became bigger than Garrett as a byproduct of the Jack 4 scandal, right? And I think all of this matters because our community is desperate for heroes and villains, for that matter, in the public eye, but mainly they're desperate for it in a sustainable kind of way. We've seen so much churn where people get the limelight and then they burn out and you never hear from them again. And the problem is when you elevate these bullshit stories, now you're asking, much like the Diddy scenario, you're asking dozens of people to corroborate it, which then follows into hundreds of people, which then falls into thousands. You know what I mean? It just becomes this like house of cards where eventually shit happens, and shit did happen. We saw him get scammed a bunch. We saw Blank Check Ben disappear. We saw Mars disappear. These guys, you know, who knows how much they potentially have scummed the community for. And what people don't really speak to is the fact that they're able to do that because their names gain credibility through these public channels, specifically these live streams and the characters within them, right? The more of a trusted individual a guy like Airball becomes, the more his vouch carries weight when he says that, you know, Mars is one of his best friends and Blank Check Ben is this good dude. And, you know, then Feldman comes out publicly and says the same thing. And then Nick says, like, Feldman's one of my best. You know, it's just this never ending perpetual cycle where people get hurt, you know, financially, people get hurt. They get taken advantage of. And you could say it's on them to do their due diligence and do better. But, you know, to a degree, we're all kind of helping propagate that by celebrating these guys that are just obviously lying. And that was, you know, that was a long rant, but what Guapo was alluding to was a tweet that I put out based off a 30-second clip that the Table One podcast put out. Do you want to run the clip since you have my tweet loaded? It should be
give me just 1 second. I got up for 1 quick second.
Okay.
Which clip are we referring to? I didn't have headphones on, Matt.
Just pull up the asset of my tweet, and it should be what I'm quote tweeting. There's a quick clip there.
Yep, got it.
Cool.
So like I remember like there were multiple times where I'd be playing at Hustler and like I would have 90% of my net worth on the table or whatever, like sitting 500K deep, and I had, you know, 550K, I had 50K in the bank account, and I was like, you know, if I dust this 500, like I'm good, like I can pay rent, like we're good, you know, I'll just go back to, I have work, you know, I get my 5K salary, paycheck, whatever in the month, my wife gets her paycheck, we're fine, like, you know, no big deal.
So it's like, I took a lot of issue with that, and you can see in the tweet.
You took it personally.
Well, I didn't take it personally. I just take a lot of issue with like that type of bullshit getting propagated.
Honestly, Burke, I think he misspoke.
Go ahead.
I think because he said his 5K salary, I think he meant 500K salary, and he gets his check every month.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I think he meant.
That's the only
right?
thing.
I don't think he was saying he's only getting $5,000 a month.
That's the only thing that can make sense, because let me tell you something.
Investment bankers don't, like, entry-level investment bankers do not make 500K.
No, I know they don't. I'm just saying he's bullshitting. He's still bullshitting, but he meant to say he's making $500,000 a year when that's obviously not true.
I call bullshit on it all because I've been on Zillow before, and you can't fucking live in LA for 5K or whatever. I don't care if you and your wife makes 15K. It's absurd.
Yeah,
it's just that's absurd.
So he said his wife makes his wife makes 125K a year, and he's making 5K a month. I assume that that's take home, which means he's probably making closer to 10K a month. But like whatever, you're talking about, you know, a very meager marriage, a very meager financial situation in a marriage, where you're living in one of the most expensive cities in the world, and you're just rifling off $500,000 in one setting. And
he's got 50 in the bank. He's good.
Believe all this, like, and there's just like so much missing from it, right? It's like, number one, if he misspoke, like, sure, that just kind of indicates even more so that he's lying.
Yes, right. No, 100%.
Caught up. Yeah, he's just getting caught up in the details of his own lie. Like, he's just a bad liar. Yeah. But on top of that, it's like, well, where did this 500K come from? He claimed he ran that up from 2.5. So, what the fuck are we? Like, who is buying into this bullshit?
Right.
He basically claimed that during COVID, he made $500,000 playing like small stakes live and app games. And it's like, there's no fucking chance. Maybe if he was raking app games, but you know, when we went like all the way back to the Jack 4 stuff, I had a lot of people reach out to me privately and say that, like, you know, they played very small with Nick in these apps, like $1, $2 PLO, stuff like that, that there were small figures that he had owed about the collective community, like $1,000 here, a few $100 there, and then maybe he got it all cleaned up since then. But the point is like that's not the paper trail of a guy who just accumulated wealth through these channels, especially like when they're not really viable. It's just as insane as to say that you could turn 20K into $1 million just because you want to. Like, sure, over a long period of time, that would be very, very possible, utilizing proper bankroll management, having access to games, you know, being able to shot take here and there and all this other stuff. But like the notion that like you're just going to play 1,000 hours or 2,000 hours over the course of the year and just jump from 510 no limit to 501K.
Well, he's the best poker player in the world, so.
Right.
And you beat him.
Which is what this is all seeming to like prop up. And at the end of the day, it's just like, I don't care where he's getting funded from. Like, who gives a shit? It's just clearly not his money.
Right.
And maybe it's just because I've always come from the vantage point of like, I'm very open when I'm being backed. I'm very open when I'm selling, and I'm very open when I have all of my own action. Now, it's up to other people if they choose to believe this kind of stuff, but like, there's no reason to hide or lie. Like, this is just a business. And there's really no reason to try to like pretend that you're doing things that are just inconceivable, like accruing generational wealth through small stakes, no limit hold'em. Like, what the fuck are we talking about?
That's the issue, right? Is like when you're trying to have the stance of getting in the high stakes games and be a player in that space. If you try to be transparent and honest about how much you've studied or tried, you'll just get barred or whatever. They're like, oh, like you're too good for us.
No, I believe him when he said he didn't study at all.
But I guess it's just that thing where like the transparency to a degree makes it tougher because people that are playing for fun don't want to feel like they're getting taken advantage of by someone that's studied or has access to it a lot.
Yeah.
Where if you're trying to get into games and say, I have X amount of money from a real job, there's no way I'd ever spend time studying poker like these nerds or selling action like these nerds, because why would I do that? I have so much money is going to get you into a game more than, I actually try and I study and I sell and I'm a professional about this. Unfortunately, that's how it works.
Right. Yeah, for sure. No, you're right. You do have to play the social ladder game and all that other stuff, but like you don't really need to be as disingenuous as people imply. And the irony is that, like, you know, through a 2-hour long podcast, he really puffed his chest and said how great he is, and he's the best no limit hold'em player in the world and the best PLO player, yada yada yada, and all this other bullshit. But they still let him play all the games. He just has access to every fucking game in the world. Well, it's like, I'm here to tell you, buddy, it's because you're losing. You're just like a fucking major whale that people will pull up a 10th chair for. And the fact is that people think that about me too. So whether it's true or not doesn't matter. You do have the seat, and that's really important. Like, no one's going to take that away from him, and he should be happy and proud about that because it's very difficult to get these seats. But it's a weird flex to pretend like you're actually out there just smashing it when everybody who's watching kind of knows better.
I mean, maybe in a way he's helping you because he just keeps claiming that you're this losing player and you don't have the right to coach people because you're a losing player, which he has like zero evidence for. It's like, did you hand over your records to him, Burke? Is that how he knows?
I have a conspiracy. These two are working together.
Wow.
Oh, the property. And they keep tearing each other down, so they keep getting access to games. That's what's happening.
They're both calling each other losers and can't win. Nik Airball lost $1 million to Matt.
Now you're going down this conspiracy rabbit hole.
So if Nick's winning a ton of money, like off the books, you know, salute.
I actually think it's not a conspiracy. It's just the truth. Doug is actually the ringleader of this, and he's like, yo, all right, he's not going to play me heads up, but I can get him to play Berkey heads up. Now, if I get him to play Berkey heads up for $1 million, I can charge him like 10% of that fee for coaching. So Doug is honestly the ringleader of this all. You know what's really annoying? Like, you watch these fucking coin flex. You watch this interview, and he goes on and he calls basically S4Y a scam always. And
So, well, he said scam's the wrong word. I shouldn't have used the word scam, but he's basically saying Berkey's not good enough to coach people, and Berkey knows this, and Berkey's still taking people's money.
So
it's insane.
All right, like the problem like I have with this, like it's so clear. Anybody that's ever walked through those doors has left infinitely better, or with infinitely more knowledge of the game. It's so clear, and like for like to even say stuff like that, it's just like wild. It's like who do you? Like,
the balls on this guy. He says that S4Y is scamming or whatever. They're not qualified to be coaches. But yet he also said he paid during the stretch of the heads up match. He paid $100,000 in coaching.
Yeah, it's because
just to lose $1 million. That's
because he's not qualified to sit at a fucking table.
Who's getting scammed here? If he paid $100,000 just to get mopped by Berkey in 3 weeks, I think he's the one that's getting scammed.
Matt gave Doug a kickback after he lost. That's just the friends. They pitted themselves against each other for years just to set up this situation we had before us a year ago.
You really missed out an opportunity sending him a bag of dicks after you won.
I know.
You really fucked up. You should have sent fucking Doug an infinite bag of dicks.
I had planned to send him a basket of dildos, but Jamie wouldn't deliver it. She was the middle person. Okay, yeah, I have a lot to say about that. I think all of you guys are making pretty good points that I kind of want to echo. First, I was like, as a friend of Justin and Art, I was kind of disappointed the way that they went along with the way that Airball framed S4Y and my ability to coach.
That's sorry, Berk. I was just gonna say that. Like I know that they're not, that Art and Justin, they're not, investigator like interviewers. They're on a podcast. We do the same thing, right? But I would have liked them to definitely have like at least pushed back or followed up. Like, how do you know Berkey's a losing player? Where are you getting this from? Sorry, go ahead, Berk.
Just the obvious statement of like, how can you say that when this guy put you in a body bag in 50 hours? Like, you guys literally had a mano-a-mano challenge where you're claiming that you're a winning player, and also at the same time claiming that not only is he a losing player, but he's not fit to coach. And this guy taught himself heads up in a quarter of the time that it took you to learn heads up to lose $1 million.
I just want to defend Art and Justin real quick. Their podcast is very much more about grabbing the story of the person that they're interviewing. They're never combative. They don't really they're never going to challenge something that is said, really, it seems. They just want to draw a story.
Though. It's not about challenging though, as so much it is. I wouldn't care if they didn't push back so much, but it was almost like Justin almost agreed. Yeah. He kind of gave well, yeah, and it's like maybe in the back of his head he thinks he's doing me a favor because that'll keep me seats if people think that I suck or whatever. But it is very on par to, or maybe adjacent to him just going on Doug's podcast calling me a scammer and Doug doubling down and saying like, yeah, absolutely, like definitely a scammer, like you heard it here first kind of thing. They weren't that aggressive, but I'm just saying, like, as both friends and colleagues in the space, you would hope that there would be like a shred of I guess like
defense. It's more like a shred of
occupational integrity. You know what I mean? It's like if I said that about Jonathan Little on their podcast, I would hope that they would push back because they're friends with John.
Right.
And it's like, I shouldn't just be allowed to promote my agenda on their platform as I see fit without any expectation of even so much as a sideway glance. And it kind of felt the opposite. It kind of felt like they leaned in and were like, oh yeah, he is unfit to coach. Like, tell me more, I
mean, I didn't exactly take it like that. I just think that they're kind of like drawing out the story. And especially like, that they don't think this. Like I've been in.
Well, yeah, but it doesn't matter what I know.
Yeah,
Right.
I know.
It's
Just
what
public
matters is
perception.
what's going out there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
what
I
matters is
mean,
what the
I
audience
guess
takes
to
away.
a degree, some potential pushback from their side of like the speculating and things that we do along some lines is a little bit much and out there and misinformative, if you will, which is valid to a degree, and obviously we don't get everything right or things along those lines.
Or anything
But I
close.
guess when it comes to something along the lines of like the story that's being said from his side of like the investment banking / like I'm just a guy that's kind of around and has all this money and I'm just here to like kind of like wail around. It's a little bit tough, you know. It's like a hard sell.
Yeah.
And
but like that who cares that they didn't push back on? Like, just let them lie. You know,
Right.
Just let them.
Right. That
continue to
doesn't really hurt anybody, but like, yeah, when he's like going after you and the business and, you know, trying to dismiss you and disqualify you, it would like they didn't, you know, Art and Justin didn't have to like go full hard defense on you, but they could have just followed up with a couple questions like, why do you think he's a losing player? Where are you coming to these conclusions, and what is your evidence, or you know, why do
or
you
even
think
just
this?
offer their own anecdotal experience, right?
Right,
Like, I've played
right.
in games with them for years. They know that like they probably have a fair estimate of like what my hourly is, let alone
Right.
whether or not I'm winning.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that chapped my ass a little bit, but it's kind of whatever.
Yeah.
What I found to be so amazing was that in the same breath, without a beat, in the same breath, he managed to call me a fraud who's not capable of coaching and a losing high stakes no limit hold'em player, while also saying that he studied for 100 hours, spent $100,000 on coaching, and lost $1 million to me in 50 hours.
Don't forget about the 20,000 he lost at 1-2 heads up when he was practicing as well.
Bro,
And shout out to those people that were playing him. You know, good on them that they scooped up that 20K.
secure your bag, kings and queens.
And everybody, like, as he said that story, everybody just kind of shrugged and was like, yeah, well, you know, that's just kind of the nature of learn. It's like, bro, he lost 100 buy-ins
Right.
in like a short period of time.
And he said, oh, maybe
That's
I'm not too good at this game.
right. That's like not a thing. But you know, to be clear, going back to like the coaching aspect of it, he spent $100,000 and who knows how many dozens, if not near 100 hours of training in order to prepare for this match. And then he claimed at the end that hurt him somehow, which is obviously just like cope in the sense that he thought that he could just like freestyle his way through it. He freestyled the first weekend, and there were bits of honesty in this interview that were like really both compelling because they were actually just true to listen to, but also just like from my vantage point, quite I guess like they were like proud moments for me. The first session, I body bagged him. I mean, I just had him fucking dead to rights. He was down 420,000 or something along those lines going into the last hour of play. And he happened to hit a runner cooler versus me where he 5x pot jammed with the nut straight, and I was trapping him with middle set. And I ultimately made a call that I would have not called literally 2 days later when I got the data back from what we had scraped from the Hustler streams, which said that in 8,000 hands, he had never bet more than like 110% pot with a bluff. So like if I had been armed with that information that Saturday, I fold the river and he just loses like 400,000 to me the first session.
Right.
And he spoke about that, and he spoke candidly. You know, you could tell he was being honest. He was like, I kind of freaked out. Like, I shouldn't be down 400,000 in the first 6 hours of play. Like, that's a lot. This might be way bloodier than I could have ever imagined, and things of that nature. Like, you could tell that, at least from my point of view, having lived through that experience and then listening to him recount it, he was telling a lot of the details very honestly. Like it was some of the most truthful stuff that I heard him say. Now he was using a lot of creative license in order to spin it in a way that made him look less bad. But it made me feel like what we're actually witnessing is somebody who's under the thumb of somebody else. Somebody else is the money man. Somebody else is fronting, or backing this to a high degree. And I don't know what their motives are or whatever, but it just seems as though he has a lot to answer to at the end of the day. And his motivation for the heads up match was to like shut me up over the Jack 4 thing, which he, doubled and tripled down on, of like how terrible we are. It's so crazy to me that all the hours that we spent on air during that scandal, the only thing people seem to remember is that it created bad blood between myself and the Hustler guys, specifically like Vertucci and Feldman. It's like people forget that we were only a few hours into speaking about the cheating scandal and whatnot before we very much changed our attention to the fact that, like, okay, this happened. We don't know to what degree something bad happened, but like a lot needs to be changed, and this is a great time to set an example. So, we put a big emphasis on stream security. We basically, put a lot of time and effort into suggestions that Hustler could make. And you could say that it wasn't our place to speak about that type of stuff, but like, if not us, then who? Would they have all just been fine if it was Chad Holloway and Poker News doing daily podcasts suggesting that the security had flaws and that they should shut down until they get that shit right? Like, would they just have an axe to grind against Poker News when it's all said and done? Probably.
Yeah, probably, but I wouldn't have. I don't think they could have like come after them like he came out. Like he clearly thought that it's like, well, he's coming after us, so then I'm going to come after him, which he basically is admitting that like everything he said about you is just made up, and he just did that because because you told the truth about some security issues over at Hustler. So now he has to just like try to bring you down because of it, just to even the score.
Yeah,
and like, good.
A lot of people that didn't realize, like you just said, I just want to stamp it. Basically, like you started mostly. I was saying fuck people still, but you were like, you focused all the attention on the stream security. I don't even think you really said anybody's name after that. Like, I don't think you used much Vertucci, much like Feldman's name, like in the situation. Definitely never really Robbie, other than the jokes, whatever. But like, It was more about stream security, and I never understood why people didn't realize that it wasn't a personal issue.
Well, I think the audience may have, but I think for everybody that was involved, Guapo, whatever you did to the camera, it looks great, by the way, at least from my side. I think for everybody that was involved, they felt so under the microscope that it couldn't help but be taken as a personal attack. And I get that. I get that. I don't expect anybody that was involved to like me. I knew that I was potentially burning bridges in the process, but I felt like these were important details at a time when all eyes were on our community and we had a chance to have some sweeping change. And you know what? A lot of those changes went through, just like more recently with the pinhole camera stuff that's been happening in live games. Like, we reported on that very heavily. It didn't get nearly the same attention as the Robbie J. Lude stuff. It wasn't as sexy of a story or anything along those lines, but a lot of places are changing the way that they deal cards now. A lot of places are changing their policies with electronics on the rail. And I feel like that's a win, at the end of the day, I may not be liked because I'm willing to speak out on this stuff and give my opinion, but I'm not wrong. That's what's most important to me. I'm coming from a place of integrity, and nobody has poked holes in my side of how I see things. Essentially, like, those security issues did need to be cleaned up, and there are some fixes within the live scenario that can reduce cheating. And those operators that are willing to execute on those fixes are hopefully going to get more business moving forward. But like, that's the thumbprint or the footprint that we leave. And I don't care if I don't make any friends along the way doing it. You know, it's like, that's the beauty of having a microphone and an opinion. And just, you know, in the inverse, they get to do the same. They get to just basically call me a piece of shit publicly, and that's fine.
Yeah, like even at the nightly they had to win. Basically, once you got to the final table, no electronics on the table. You can't use your phone, nothing along those lines. So it's kind of cool to like see, because I know they watch the podcast, and it's like maybe I wonder if it was done after we talked about this or etc. But yeah, it's cool to see the change happening.
Right, and it doesn't even matter. Like, we don't need the credit, you know. We just need to see it actually happening. Like that. That's all that fucking matters to any of us. Right. But yeah, going back to the airball stuff. I'll stick a pin in it, and then anything else you guys would want to say, go nuts. But I don't think people understand like what went into the process of that match, or maybe they do, because I've spoken about it a fair amount. But when I get disqualified as the ability or like having the ability to coach others and things of that nature, it is interesting to me of like where that comes from. Not in a sense of I think so highly of my ability to teach or anything along those lines. Just more so in the sense of how much information are the people saying this actually lacking? Like would their minds change if they knew how much I've actually won in poker in the last 21 years, more specifically in high stakes poker in the last 10 years? Would their minds changed if they knew that I had legitimately played less than 500 hands heads up ever in my life prior to the Nik Airball match, and that I spent $1,500 on coaching for 90 minutes with K-Rap?
I think to a degree, the issue that's just going to happen by default is that people will think that you're making things up.
Right, no.
Because it's live and unprotected.
Yeah. I'm not coming from a place of what if I told them. I'm coming from a place of like,
they
what if they
actually
actually had access? Yeah, what if they had access to just pure truths? Like, this is actually what I've won year over year for the last 20 years.
The issue is if you told them, they wouldn't believe you, but if they had it, they would accept it.
Right. Well, that's what he's saying. If they actually knew for a fact, I mean, then they would have a choice to make. They could either just keep lying to themselves, or no, I'm serious. They could either lie to themselves or realize that, you know, you excuse me, that you do have the ability to coach. I think the biggest thing would be if they showed up to an academy, right? Or like if they actually sat through a 3-day academy and then said, wow, like this isn't what I expected to see.
S4Y hater academy.
You know who I wish Airball would show up to an academy? One time, Airball, just come over to Academy. Come learn something.
To be fair, for him, I don't think it would matter because he's so unqualified as a student. And that should be abundantly clear by the fact that he hired the best minds in the world, paid them $100,000, and he couldn't figure out simple things like turn probe frequencies. You know, like he just couldn't balance a range. I said this and I meant it. He's one of the least theoretically sound humans I've ever played poker with in my life. And I play with like stone whales, right? Like I literally play with recreationals that have never even so much as looked at a pre-flop chart. And they even understand game theory to a deeper degree than Airball does.
We can send him quick studies. It's free. It's free on the site if he wants to watch it. And then maybe, and then once he gets through quick studies, then maybe he can, head on over to and get an all-in access pass, and then he can take the Academy primer. And then after the primer, maybe he'll come here and be ready to go.
I'll be honest with you. I would bet that he doesn't have a complete understanding of the course 4 in the quick studies about EV and all that type of stuff. Like I would bet that he did.
Wholeheartedly agree.
I would bet much.
Yeah, and I think that was.
Well, he admitted that he never studied.
Yeah.
Except for the $100K he paid for 100 hours.
But like a lot of people say things, right? He thinks about the game. It's just a matter of how deeply, because like he's best friends with Ishan. Ishan's a very studied player. Ishan is knowledgeable. He gets
some of that has to rub off.
Right. Something has to be bleeding into their conversation. But it's funny because I've seen them interact, and like Airball kind of talks down to him when it comes to poker because Airball plays much bigger and he has seats in every single game, and Ishan just doesn't.
God,
And
I
the
really
irony
hope
is
that
like.
Sorry, I really hope that Airball doesn't rub off on Ishan because I like Ishan. He's a nice, quiet guy. You know,
He's quiet?
He worked. Ishan?
Yeah.
Ishan?
The guy
not
that's always
quiet.
laughing?
Ishan might have got his laugh from Nick, yeah.
Yeah, he just laughs.
Okay.
Yeah, he's quiet. He's cool.
All right.
I like him.
I actually think that they're great together. Coincidentally, outside of like all of the character flaws I see with Nick, I actually think like he's a pretty likable person.
Yeah, it probably seems that way.
You know, it's tough for me to find a way to like him when he's just constantly talking his shit. But I do find it to be ironic that, like, you know, comparatively, Nick is like a 3 out of 10, maybe a 2 out of 10 when it comes to a professional poker player, and Ishan might be like a 7.5 out of 10. But if you see their dynamic, they speak to each other like the inverse is true. You know,
They're like Bert and Ernie.
Well, it's just that like Airball like little bros him a lot, and I think Ishan's even older, which is even funnier. But neither here nor there. The irony of like all of that basically is that, you know, I think he's like largely unteachable, and the beauty of it all is that he's so unaware of any of this, and he's so unaware, like you said, of things like EV and equity and how money moves about the table, that it just creates this beautiful dynamic where he's just a whale who somebody's funding and seems to have an endless supply of money, which is just great for any of us that have access.
It's quite funny because, like, when you say the power dynamic between Ishan and Airball when it comes to poker, I was immediately thought, well, okay, well, Airball probably just backs Ishan, and then when you said that just now, it's like, okay, well, Airball gets a bankroll somewhere else to back himself and Ishan. And, you know, it's kind of like the quinky dink. I don't know. It's all interesting.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you this. For less than 100K, you can get far more coaching than Airball received in his 8 hours of whatever the fuck it was for Heads Up. I managed to teach myself Heads Up in a dozen hours, and it was adequate enough to beat a whale. So I could teach you too how to beat whales in your 5-10, 2-5, 1-3, whatever it is that you're playing in the live venue. We have our Academy November 12th to the 14th. Seats are still available. Academy.s4y.io. Again, it's very live based. The entire curriculum is basically taking the fundamentals of game theory, introducing them, and then applying somewhat exploitative mechanics based off of how these pools tend to be imbalanced, I would say. After the regular Academy, we have the Elite Academy. That is for prior attendees only. That's November 15th to the 18th. That's going to be Poker Out Loud style. This is going to be very heavily post-flop based, exploit based. We're going to pick up where we left off on the original Academy, and we're going to spend a lot of time diving into how to construct a logical framework of thinking that you can always rely on basically in game, regardless of how you got into a spot. So again, if you're a former Academy attendee and you have any interest, head to academy.s4y.io. Seats are still available for that. And if you want to attend both so that you can both be a current attendee or a current Academy attendee and a prior one qualifying for the Elite, just hit up the La Manager. You can find him on all socials at BRLike7 or in our Discord channel. You can shoot him a DM.
Be excited for that. What was the last Academy we did? It feels like it's been a little while.
Right before the
before the series.
Right before the series.
Yeah.
Yep.
Love Academies.
Mm-hmm.
So much fun.
All right, we're running a little bit long, but I think we have it in the muck here to get to.
Let's get in the muck then. Back in the muck, and it's our one and only
Manuel
El Gonzalez, El Guapo they call him.
He literally can't speak.
That last name?
El Gonzalez. Yeah, there's like a V before the L and then another V after, I think, or something along those lines.
All right,
What's
kids.
poppin', Guapo? What do you got for us today?
Per usual.
Wow, you have a lot of chips in front of you.
Yeah, somehow I got lucky. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
We are back in the 100 NL streets per usual. I opened 2.7. I usually open 2.2. This is just me clicking the wrong buttons, but looks like we get a flat in the small blind and a squeeze from a reg in the big blind to 13. After we're not going to go too long into this. I don't want to beat Nikki's record on breaking down hands. But this is a 100% call for me, and it's apparently not. So this is something to think about. But we do call. Go to a flop 5-3 jack, 5 of hearts, 3 of spades, jack of diamonds. And our opponent goes for, looks like 33%. This feels like an okay call. I think it feels more intuitive if there was a diamond as well, but we do decide to peel. Turn is the 9 of spades. Our opponent now decides to check. I decide to check this back, but I certainly thought about betting. It would seem strange that if our opponent had a really good hand that he would slow down here. But with that being in mind, we do check. Turn is the 9 of clubs. And our opponent is passive once again. And I'm trying to think about what hands are giving up here. He's going to have his ace queens, his ace kings, his ace tens. Maybe hands like 8s. Maybe 7s if those are in range. I don't think so. And we're trying to get a cheap bluff. At least this is the way I'm thinking about it. So I go for a third. And it gets through. We take down the hand, but I don't feel great about it. I feel like I'm...
Where do you feel like you're in the muck most here?
My decision process on the river. Whether or not I can show down against hands like all of his suited broadways that don't contain an ace. We're obviously beating those hands. It just feels gross checking back here, and I see, the pocket 8s or the ace king or the ace queen or the ace 10. Mm-hmm. When we could have just bet and taken down the hand.
Do you think a lot of those hands would call? Like 8s is not folding, right, to third pot bet?
I don't know, but I feel like the size of my bet will at least make him think about this.
So, when you say the size of your bet make him think about this, you only bet a third pot.
Yeah.
How often does he have to be right to be profitable?
3 to 1, right?
If you bet a third pot.
He's getting 3 to 1. He's getting 2 to 1, excuse me. 3 to 1?
3 to 1. 4 to 1.
Yeah, 4 to 1.
So he's got to be right 25% of the time.
20,
excuse me.
20%.
And do you think 8 is going to be correct 20% of the time?
Yes.
We got to price his ass out then. We got to put a bluff in. I think honestly, the river sizing, yes, I believe.
Well, I mean, I did put in a bluff. It's just the size of the
bluff.
bluff.
No, yeah, it's the size of the bluff. It's about because like this is like.
Okay, but let me also, because it's not just pocket 8s. I mean, I'm thinking about ace king. I'm thinking about ace queen. I'm thinking about ace 10. How often are those hands going to call?
I think they're all pretty clear calls. Getting that price.
Right.
You're just giving him such a great price that he only has to be right 20% of the time. So if you're ever bluffing,
you're just
So this is where I would disagree. I think that people are folding ace king, ace queen, ace 10 here, sometimes even getting this price.
But all right, so
again, I don't have any evidence.
That's an exploitative. Then you're making an exploitative play based on, because they should be calling those hands. I would think to some frequency, right?
Here's the thing: you want to guide your strategy by the math here. Like if you don't want, like, yes, he might fold there for a third pot, but mathematically he should call, like, because he's right 20% of the time. So it's like you want to build your strategy for you to be the best you can in this situation. I think that the biggest part of this hand is not betting turn, or actually even just calling the 3-bet pre, but not betting turn, I think, is a big issue.
Calling's fine, but I think Conrad's,
go ahead, Matt.
I think Conrad's very right. I think he makes 2 major points here that kind of piggyback off of one another. First and foremost, when you're choosing to reopen the action and put in a bet here, did you lose my camera?
Well, I have the sim up, so I can't flip between the two, at least not at the moment.
Oh, I see. Okay. So when you choose to reopen the action on the river and you want to put money into the pot, you need to be figuring out what dollar amount to choose and where in your opponent's range starts to become indifferent for said dollar amount. I imagine ace highs become indifferent for third pot, but everything better than ace high is probably just like pure.
So just real quick, if what you just said is true, my size would be okay then if they are indifferent, right?
Well, you have an ace. So you have an ace, so the things that you're targeting are much fewer and farther in between, and you're just getting snapped by all the hands better. He has a concentration of hands that can be indifferent for a different size on the river, though, like pocket eights, pocket nines, etc. But that is a mechanical error, in my opinion. What's the fun phrase that we always use, Lamanna?
It's past.
It's not a mistake.
Yeah.
It's no,
you're saying the past results don't.
No.
Wait,
Blunder?
It's not a blunder. It's a something else.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Yeah,
Sorry,
it's not,
I can't think of it either.
Yeah.
But basically,
It'll come to me.
It's the idea of it being a mechanical misstep as opposed to a philosophical one.
An error and an inaccuracy is what it was.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's an inaccuracy as opposed to an error. The error, in my opinion, agreeing with Conrad, is the turn. If you aren't bluffing this hand, what hands would you choose to bluff?
Probably a good thing when you guys put me on the spot. Say that again, Matt.
If you're not bluffing this hand on the turn, what hand would you bluff?
So it's easier for me to bluff hands that have more equity. So let's say, for instance, I had the ace deuce of spades here. Like, if you want to call that a bluff.
That's not a bluff. That's nutted.
Once you start moving up in the equity, right? I think you're like once your equity reaches a certain point, you're just not bluffing anymore because it's just too good of a hand.
What do you do if you get jammed on?
I think King 10 is an okay bluff.
King 10 of spades, or just King 10 in general. King 10 backdoor. I agree with you.
Here, so
you can have diamond or heart. Also,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
what's the difference between King 10 and ace deuce?
Are you talking to me or are you talking to him?
No, he's talking to me.
Obviously, I'm talking to Guapo.
Yeah. What's the difference between King 10 and ace deuce? I mean, obviously ace deuce is a better hand because it has showdown value.
Does it? What does it show down against? Like, what's ace
his
deuce
broadways
beating?
that don't contain an ace that 3-bet pre?
Name them.
His king queens, his king 10s.
Gut shot.
Those all continue barreling on turn. Those are hands that are never giving up when they see this turn card. That is their gin turn card, obviously outside of a 10 or whatever.
So then him checking here doesn't make a lot of sense then, right?
It does with his ace highs, but you're dominated by all the ace highs.
And his eights and his pairs, whatever, and hands like that.
I understand.
Like pocket 10s, pocket jacks, the trap, aces, the trap.
So now we want to start putting pressure on these hands, and they might call turn, but now they have to call two if we brick, and it comes a good river.
Yeah.
Landon, you also mentioned that
sorry,
I had...
Good.
Go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say ace deuce blocks aces where King 10 doesn't.
King Landon 10 had also mentioned
King 10 blocks one of the hands that will fold.
Okay. Landon mentioned that I had good suits to fire here on the turn, but I wasn't exactly sure what that meant.
It means because you don't have any of the backdoors on the flop.
Right.
Say that again.
Let's say this guy has ace 10 of hearts. If this guy has ace 10 of hearts, he now folds the turn when you don't have the backdoor suit.
Gotcha.
It's more likely he has a hand that c-bets the flop and then check folds when you have clubs, because they're mostly going to bet their spades on the turn because they have equity.
Because they
betting
picked
on
up
equity.
equity.
Correct. Yeah. For the same reason that you want to bluff the turn, they will bluff the turn.
Exactly. For the same reason King 10's or King Queen would be bluffing this turn.
But the difference is they're out of position and you're in position. So when you're in position, you want to be bluffing with less equity because you don't want to get check piled off of your equity. Like if I said
so
to you,
this way it's just easier to fold if he does decide to aggress.
if you have ace deuce of spades and you bet and get jammed on, what do?
It sucks, but I'm calling.
Right. So you're not bluffing.
Right, so
really.
you're not
It's like a
bluffing.
pseudo bluff. Like
Yeah.
you're pseudo mega mastering a bluff where like it's probably even fine to bet ace deuce of spades to call it off. But like you have to know that
Right,
you're not
but
really
like 6,
bluffing.
7 of spades would not be okay.
Yeah, I would check 6, 7 of spades because now you have bad cards.
Double gutted with flush.
Yeah, just try to make your hand.
But more importantly, like when you get check jammed on, it's a nightmare because you're getting blown off of so much equity. Where like ace deuce, at least you can call and sometimes have showdown value.
Fucking hell! I mean, you probably have to pay. It depends what size. I guess it depends on what size you bet the turn, which I guess is a different
Right.
question as well.
Yes.
Because if you bet tiny on the turn and get jammed on, you probably have to fold. But if you bet like 67 or whatever and get jammed on, you'd have to pay.
Yeah,
It feels like only a third you'd have to like. It would be close, but you might have to fold. Other than that, I think you just have to call off with 6, 7 of spades.
The important takeaway here is like where the error is actually occurring, in my opinion, is on turn range construction.
Yes.
You just don't have any bluffs to support your value. So when you start betting hands like ace jack plus, the bluffs that you're utilizing to support that value are also just high equity hands. It's just like combo draws, you know. It's not.
I don't have a
just
lot of nothing
turn
burgers
dust.
to. Yeah.
Okay, let's start here. When he bets third pot, if you can try to think like quickly, what is the worst hand that you have that calls the flop bet?
What street are we talking about?
Flop.
When he bets a third pot.
So
what?
go back to the flop.
Okay.
Like on the thing. No. Yep. What's the worst hand you call this bet with?
All of my pairs, my 6s through 10s.
Those are bets better than the ace deuce.
Actually, no. I'm calling here with ace 5 as well.
That's a pair.
Oh, what?
I'm talking about the worst hand that you have, showdown value wise. Like, what is your worst? What is your lightest float?
My suited aces with back doors.
Like
What,
queen,
like a
like queen
backdoor
10 of
flush draw?
diamonds maybe is your worst hand.
Right. Right. What about queen 10 of diamonds? What about king 10 of spades? Right.
7, 6 of a backdoor.
Well, maybe this is very telling, but I don't think I call those.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
How about
I said maybe this is very telling, but maybe I don't call those.
How
I
about
don't- like when I-
7, 6 of hearts you call?
Yes.
Obviously.
That's a gutter.
That's
Right.
Anyways, my point here is that you're not continuing versus the C bet nearly as much as you need to.
No, this is something that is a trend. Yes, I'm aware of this.
Right. Where I'm going with this is that's why your range has too much equity when you try to bluff because you don't have enough nothing that floated flop.
Gotcha.
Because he's printing off of you by going third pot and making you fold king 10 of spades
When I shouldn't be folding.
when you should not be folding. So you're making up that EV by having way too strong of a range when you do continue. So now it's harder for you to find bluffs in like the turn bet river jam nodes or the check back river bluff nodes because you have too much showdown value in your range. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So like when it comes to ace deuce as a whole, you don't always have to be bluffing this hand in theory. Like you're going to bluff a lot, but you also don't have to bluff every time, if you will. But at the same time, if you're not floating enough, you should be bluffing this all the time because you don't have enough bluffs as a whole.
Right.
So like
And
range.
bring this full circle.
Yeah, sorry.
Bring this full circle back to the airball discussion. Like this is like largely what he just doesn't understand about theory. Like he's just clicking buttons on every street, and it's easy to build from the top down. It's easy to know what your continues are when they're high up in your range, but you just like can't just like randomly do shit with the rest of the range then. So what ultimately happened where a ton of imbalances just occurred, you know, I talked to Doug like after the match and he was just like, you ran insanely well. It's impossible to win that many buy-ins, yada, yada, yada. And I go, I mean, yes, I ran well, obviously, but when you're playing that deep, we were on average 300, 400, 500 big blinds effective. When you're playing that deep, you don't show down nearly as often as you would at 100 big blind poker and heads up. And what that leads to is the imbalances really fucking being hammered, you know, because what ultimately happens is if you as the opponent are able to recognize where your opposition is heavily imbalanced, you can curate a strategy that positions them into that call fold, or that call fold, like whatever it is that you're trying to manipulate. You can do it over and over again. So in this instance, you don't float enough on the flop, right? This guy can just range bet and take advantage of your underfold there, but then he has to correct course later. Or he can just like start checking a lot more often, forcing you to now have more hands on the turn and go for a bigger overfold on later streets for more money. He can even start betting less than third pot, which will then, potentially, there's a million ways essentially to curate strategy that will basically beat the living Jesus out of somebody whenever their imbalances are effectively face up. Now, in this particular instance, there's no way that this guy would know because he can't run a HUD. He doesn't have hand histories on you, yada, yada, yada. But the point is we as the collective who get to see your hand histories, we do recognize where the error is actually occurring. And to Landon's point, that's a philosophical problem, right? That ultimately comes from range construction. So the way that you understand pre-flop needs to then carry forward into how you begin to understand flop play, and so on and so forth. Ranges just prune, right? They don't morph. Not one street over the next. They morph from pre-flop to river, but like your range construction from pre-flop to post c-bet is going to be relatively intact. And what I think Landon's pointing out here is that for you, that's not true. It's overly pruning, right? And it's morphing now into this relatively nutted polar defense range.
And I just got paralleled to Nik Airball. That feels bad.
No, I don't think. I think he was just using him as an example. Nobody would ever do that.
I think he's just the extreme example.
Yeah.
And like the reason I wanted to use that is because when you have a win rate that's inconceivable, it's like, of course, that's positive variance. But when you start to identify where all the leaks and holes are coming from, you start to settle on a win rate that is still obscene. Like I was probably beating him for 30 or 35 big blinds per 100. And that's just like an obscene win rate, but it's very doable if somebody's bad.
Yeah, I think your point being deeper and trying to have understandings of where someone is making mistakes allows you to have bluffs that make more money than they should, or go for value in spots where you shouldn't, kind of thing. So I guess if we want to go to
see what the whiz says,
go to the whiz.
Also, quick shout out to you guys. I do appreciate all this help. I do realize not everybody gets access to this, so thank you.
So flop for him. I'm using like the MTT ranges because small blind call and ace deuce is in there. So we're just going to move past that. For him, he should go big bet and check, trying to leverage the overpair advantages more than going tiny. So we're going to have to fix this. But I wanted to show the big bet or check first before going to 33. It just does way better for the villain here to just try to leverage this overpair advantage, get more money in, and have you have tough spots with some of the bottom portions of your range, the middle of your range. So he goes third, and we'll see here for you, you don't get to play any raises, but you also don't fold very often because he's choosing a size that he's not supposed to. Like even king queen off to a degree, depending on your suits, just can't find a fold if you block some suited jacks, like king queen, king of hearts.
So the price he's laying me is too good.
Price too good, correct. So you can't fold anything that has any sort of semblance of equity at all. Like even 8-7 of spades here, supposed to find appeal versus 33. So in out of position's defense, like he kind of doesn't know that he's exploiting you pretty hard, but he is. And we are where we are, right? Like you just can't fold anything with like queen 10, even queen 10 of clubs, like no backdoor flush draw. You just kind of have to pay. Just because you're either hoping for the check note or you're trying to improve on a 10 or a king
9, anything that opens you up. Like you just 3 to a straight, 3 to a flush.
In position versus third pot. Yeah. Like in position versus tiny bet.
It's also just like it's a hand that's more live versus ace king. Like you can see king queen off doesn't pay nearly as much because it's so much more dominated by just his simple stabs with ace king, ace queen.
Makes sense.
I think the big takeaway right now is that the minimum defense frequency versus a really small bet like this, if I have any resemblance of equity, I should be staying in there.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you peel. The turn was a 9 of spades. And brother man goes for check. So the size for you is 40 for check back. And as you see here, the ace deuce, like you're mostly betting, and then you're checking back sometimes. But in my opinion, I think you should just bet pure with the ace deuce of clubs combos because you might not bet the other ones. And as you see here, like ace deuce of spades is betting in full because it's not really bluffing. Like you're always going to see the river regardless of what happens. If you look at 7-6, this is why 7-6 of spades pure checks. You really want to see a river, but if you have 7-6 of clubs, like no backdoor suit, you can go for the bet because if you get jammed on, easy fold, correct. Gotcha. So you want to construct your range in a sense that where you have easy decisions, whether it's a snap call or a snap fold.
Gotcha.
To a large degree, right? There's going to be some.
To be clear, though, that's not like, yes, that's what you want to do. That's like the mental reminder, but that's not what's actually happening. The solver doesn't have difficult decisions. It's a machine. What the notion of you want to construct a strategy that allows you to have easy decisions actually translates to is you want to bet hands of relatively high equity and hands of relatively low equity. So when you reopen here, what it indicates is that this is a relatively polarizing spot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, to a degree, right? Just because like there's some
in nature.
So my middling strength hands want to check back here.
Well, sort of, right? Because you're looking here, like we're trying to target the ace high portion of out of positions range. Like eights isn't a nutted hand, you know, and if you bet 40% and you get jammed on, you're going to find a fold with it. And like, that's okay, right? And as you see here for out of position.
I think this is where it starts to get difficult for me because I feel like when I have hands that are 6s, 7s, 8s, I feel like they need protection. But is betting them now incorrect?
No, it seems very reasonable. Yeah. Right?
But I'm in the middle of aren't I in that middle portion of my range again?
Eights,
but he checked to you after an aggressive.
He checked, you bet, and then he went all in.
Right.
So like the portion of range that you're targeting with the 40%, like is the high card region that you're trying to protect from. So he's only jamming on you 14% of the time.
Well, but if you have eights and you bet the turn and then he jams,
it's a fold.
Easy fold, right?
Right.
So then that's why you could bet it because you can just easily fold it if you get jammed on, right? But if you have like a higher equity hand of combo draw with no showdown, like the 6-7 of spades, now when he jams on you, you're like, oh, that sucks. That feels dirty, right? Okay. So yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what's happening here. Like the range is semi-polar, if you will.
It's polar in equity, right?
Not really, though. That's what the 40 is for.
Nature, but let me finish. It's because of the SPR being what it is, right? So you can, because of the sizing scheme that we're choosing, we get to be a lot more linear in nature, but it's still relatively polar in the sense that the middle that we choose to bet, if you want to view it that way, is still just falling off as the bottom, right?
It's very protective driven, yeah.
Yeah, it just has different incentives. Like the middle is betting for protection, the bottom is betting as bluff, and the top is betting as value. Yeah. But the middle just falls into the bottom whenever it faces aggression.
And you have no need to bet a bigger size because you're trying to have a one size strategy where this guy can't just check pile on you when you do bet a hand like pocket jacks, right? Like you have top set, you have middle sets, you have ace jack. So if you choose 40%, he can't be like, oh, he has eights, I'm all in. Mm-hmm. Right? You're just protecting yourself by playing the one sizing strategy really well. So when he checks, this is your strategy, and you can check back sometimes. You can also bet. So we go through the check node, and the river is the 9 of clubs. And then he checks again. He's going to have a lot of ace highs like you were talking about. See here, like his range that checks is like ace high, aces trap, full house trap, and then kind of some nothing that he's just stone giving up with, right? Like king 8. He's just done with the hand. So when he checks, your range now splits into playing I mean, kind of everywhere. It
There is
doesn't. It can kind of get fixed up a little bit. But you have like small portions of jam for like your 9s because your 9 needs to get paid. You have portions of your range that want to bet like pocket 10s that wants to get value from ace high.
Can you do me a favor and click the all in?
Yeah,
I
because
just
then
wanna
it
see
just
what-
It's
highlights.
just a 9.
I
It's
know,
just
I know.
polar. It's just a 9 or not a 9.
Yeah.
And ace deuce, right? Because your ace deuce of diamonds is a good one because you block the suited 9s.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, like you don't have to play 3 sizes. It's kind of just where we're at this point.
Yeah, I was just curious.
So if I'm just going to remove like the pot option. So you go 67 and all in. These are your new choices. So you're basically mixing some 9s for both sizes just to kind of protect yourself. But even 7s, right? Like you're betting 7s for value because he has ace high. So like your thinking on the end is valid that like you're trying to get ace high to fold, but the price that you're using is not going to cause indifference, which is now back to the exploitative part of I don't think he's going to call this versus the small size.
I understand.
And it's not that that's like wrong per se, but fundamentally you don't really bet less than half pot on the river because you allow action to get reopened.
Can we see what he calls with when he does bet the 33?
When he does bet 33?
Yeah, when he bets 30.
Yeah, when he bets
So
Sure.
you have to lock.
Well, yeah, I'd have to remove the 67 and only give like 33 in check or 33 and all in, I guess. Yeah, I just have to remove all in too. Herein lies the issue, I suppose. Because if you have a 9,
this is where we start breaking the machine.
yeah, like
right?
if you have a 9, you don't want to bet third pot.
Right.
Right.
You want to get more money for your 9.
Right.
So when you go third pot for check, like ace king is
Look how much he
effectively-
calls with. Yeah.
Right, because now we'll go back. Ace deuce doesn't even bet. It's not even
Yeah.
a viable option.
You just hope to beat king queen.
Yeah.
So
which
this is
unlikely
kind of
plays this way.
the effective issue of trying to like custom the bluff is that even though you give yourself a cheaper price, you're butchering the value portion of your range, right? Your value wants more money, and poker is driven through value, less so bluffs. So you have to think,
Right,
what's
and
the worst
even if
value
you-
hand I'm going to
even
bet,
if
and
you-
what size do I want to choose?
Even if you build this exploitatively where like he's bluffing for third pot and valuing for full pot or whatever, it's still just like not going to like it. You don't have to actually run it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because you're just gonna have to node block then that ace deuce bets third pot and it's just gonna show you an EV loss. Like
Right.
it's just basically gonna say like you're torching because ace king and ace queen just like fuck you call.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought that this was actually really great in the muck for what it's worth. You can shut it down.
Sorry, I had to punish myself.
I mean,
Reject
for-
me,
Don't be
daddy.
sorry.
I mean, for what it's worth, like you just missed the river size. Like you played like flop is fine, turn is effectively fine, river have to size bigger and rep a 9 and you're trying to get ace high to fold.
I think I disagree. I have the opposite feedback. I think turn is a big blunder.
I think turn.
He's saying effectively fine because it checks like 15 or 20% of the time, but that's assuming you have a perfect range construction, which you don't.
Yeah.
So like this hand is basically pretty much a pure bet on the turn, and philosophically, like you just stand to miss it.
You're philosophically flawed, Guapo.
Landon,
It's
go ahead
okay.
and close your screen when you get your second.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, I thought that was a really good in the muck. Appreciate you submitting it, Guap. Hopefully
I always have little
you-
takeaways, Matt. I always have little
Go
takeaways.
ahead.
It's just just applying them and learning. But I appreciate it, guys.
Well, I'm glad you have a little takeaway because otherwise I would be unfit to be a
I know.
if I'm not proving anything, it's that I can teach fucking 1-2 no limit.
Yeah, I mean, it is funny because as you were going through the explanation, Berkey, I was just thinking, I was like, how can anybody listen to you right now explain this and go through this and think you're unqualified
And the big takeaway is
to be
he
a
can't do
coach?
it.
It's wild.
Yeah. No, this fucking guy doesn't know anything. All right, that's gonna wrap for us today. We have a big episode on Wednesday. Adam Plishka is gonna be joining us.
Let's go.
Let me get
Sorry,
back
that
down
was
in here.
the in the muck crop.
Yeah, I get it. Head of WPT, they have some big announcements on the way for WPT December, the championship series at the Win. He's going to be coming in. He's going to answer all of our questions. So if in the meantime you guys have anything that you would like to ask Adam, feel free to leave it in the comments below or hit us up on Twitter. Go ahead and leave a a comment on the thread. We'll post something either Tuesday or Wednesday, probably Tuesday, announcing his appearance with us. As always, we appreciate you guys supporting the channel, supporting us. So don't forget to give it a like, click the bell, subscribe, and we appreciate you rocking with us. We'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Later, squad.
Peace.